excited to welcome in Rangers head coach David Quinn. Coach, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Good to see you, Coach.
Hanson, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Very good. I've replaced Steve Valiquette, if you remember, from our Home Ice show now, and now I have Anson as my side.
Big upgrade. Big upgrade.
Huge upgrade.
Huge upgrade. We brought the varsity in. I love it.
All right. Okay, so let's kick things off with what we've dubbed, Coach, as the Monday Night Miracle, and that's, of course, the Rangers winning the draft lottery. Rangers president John Davidson said he had his eyes closed when the ball was drawn, so I'm curious, what were you doing? What was your immediate reaction when you found out that Rangers are going to have the number 1 pick?
Yeah, I almost pulled a hamstring jumping out of my chair when I saw that ping pong ball shoot up that little chute there. So obviously it was a week of highs and lows with the disappointing performance in Toronto, and then come home and do a lot of self-evaluation and, going through a lot of things organizationally in which we feel we got to be better in, and then have that happen Monday night. Really switch things a little bit, made everybody feel good. I'm a lot less pissed today than I was last Monday morning when waking up, still feeling that deep sting of what went on in Toronto.
Yeah, Coach, it's almost like you guys get the best of both worlds. Your young players got a little taste of what playoff hockey's all about. You're getting the number 1 draft pick. But is there more pressure in the organization this year going to the draft? Last year, the Rangers couldn't screw it up. You're getting whatever the New Jersey Devils didn't select. Now this year, you're the number 1 pick, and there's a handful of guys that could be future stars in the National Hockey League.
There's a lot of great players in this draft. Everybody that I talk to says it's a very deep draft. That being said, that's above my pay grade. I don't make those decisions, and I have an awful lot of faith in our organization, our scouting staff, Jeff Gordon and Chris Drury, that we're going to pick the right player. And they've done a heck of a job over these last 2 years since we sent out that letter, and everybody talks about the fact that where we're at, maybe a little bit ahead of the process of quote-unquote rebuilding. We always like to talk about building. We're building a Stanley Cup team here day in and day out, but it's just another great asset to have, and these guys have done a phenomenal job in putting us in a position that we're at today. That being said, nobody's happy with what happened in Toronto. We certainly have higher expectations for ourselves and our organization, and hopefully that learning situation in Toronto, it will make us a better team and a better organization.
Absolutely. We'll get to more on that in a second, but I do want to go back to this number 1 draft pick because that's pretty exciting. Obviously, we remember how receptive New York City was last year. Anson, we were telling the story on the show a couple days ago about when Kaapo Kakko was selected, the celebration around him in general. So you have to imagine this is the first time since 1965 that the Rangers have gotten the first pick. This city just must be elated for that.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the reaction that on our Instagram. They showed a bunch of our fans. They were filming the process, the draft process for the number 1 pick. And when that ping pong ball went up that chute, it was about a minute of our fans reacting to the winning the lottery, and it was pretty cool. And we actually watched it yesterday and had a lot of laughs about it. But it just speaks to volumes about the passion of our Ranger fan base. And I've said this repeatedly. I mean, there's no such thing as a Ranger fan. It's just a crazy Ranger fan, and their passion is deep. And it's amazing to me when we travel how many Ranger fans are in opposing buildings. It's incredible, and there's nothing like it in the NHL.
Coach, you're a Boston guy. Are you sometimes amazed at how well received you are by New York sports fans?
I'm a New York guy now. Well, it's funny because I went to prep school in Connecticut, and when I got to Kent back in 1981, everybody was Ranger fans. They were Giant fans. They were Yankee fans. And I was a true following, heart passionate, New England sports fan. But, when you're in that environment for 3 years, you start, Giants aren't that bad. The Rangers aren't that bad. And Yankees aren't that bad. And that was so I've got a little bit of that in me. And you take this job and you just feel the passion of the fan base of all the franchises in this city. And it's tough not to get caught up in it. And you work here with the Knicks. I mean, I know these people personally, and I root hard for the Knicks, even though I was a lifelong Celtics fan. Now I'm a Knicks fan because it's more about the people and the city you work in. And, it is nice to be received a little bit better than I had anticipated when I took this job. That's for sure.
So let's transition back to that series. Obviously, as you mentioned, it was disappointing for you. You said when you came home, a lot of self-evaluation. So as you look back on that qualifying round, what are your takeaways?
Well, you can't unsee what you've already seen, and we have to be careful with evaluating the whole season and including what went on up in Toronto. And we can learn some things from our experience in Toronto. We don't want to ignore what happened the last 3 months of the season. We felt we were really making great strides and playing the hockey we we're going to need to play to have success at the important time of the year, and that's playoff hockey. And all the things that we were the last 3 months of the season or 2.5 months of the season, we were not up in Toronto. You know, one of the things we were a great third period team. I think we were the third best third period team in the NHL. We got blown away in all 3 third periods against Carolina. And we were mentally tough during the season. We weren't mentally tough in Toronto. We were resilient during the season. We weren't resilient up into Toronto.
And last playoff series aside, Coach, which player or players showed you the most growth after you go back and look over the last season?
Well, there are a lot of things that kind of happened for us when the season got going, when the calendar turned and January 1st hit. You look at, there was so much uncertainty going into the season, and who was going to be our second line center, who was going to, what was our deep core going to look like, what were the pairings going to be, who was, you know, how was Hedl going to, type of season Hedl was going to have, and Howden and Kakko and all these question marks. And I think once the calendar turned, our guys realized, okay, we got a bunch of guys that are pretty good. I think there was an inner belief within our locker room that we could have a good hockey team. And if you don't have hope or have belief, you don't have anything. You have no chance to have success. And everybody points to the fact that we're able to hang around 500 before the calendar turned, and then we really turned it on. And I think there were a laundry list of players that had good seasons that maybe you wouldn't expect, starting with Mika. I mean, Mika's, 41 goals, leads the NHL in goals per game. Strome had a great season. Panarin has a great season. Hedl has a great season after coming back from Hartford. Kaapo made some great strides. Howden made some strides. Lindgren and Fox, nobody counted on them having the season they had. I thought Trouba had a good second half. Mark Stahl had a good second half. So there was a bunch of things. Tony DeAngelo had a great season. So there were a bunch of guys that we could point to as an organization that we feel really good about right now.
Coach, when I played, I was never one of the guys that could watch playoff hockey once we're eliminated. It just stung. It was too painful. It was hard for me to watch. Do you watch hockey still, or have you sort of put it aside and moved on and getting ready to prepare for next season?
No, I'm forcing myself to watch it. I need to suffer a little bit too. I need great motivation. And I think you can learn. I think you watch and learn. You try to watch as much hockey as you can because you can always pick something up. So it's twofold. I'm doing it to force myself to suffer and feel what I'm missing, and also to hopefully pick up some things when you're watching the games.
Well, that being said, then we got to ask you about that 5 overtime game. Have you ever been in a situation where it's multiple overtimes like that, where maybe, these guys, these coaches were standing for 8.5 periods?
Yeah, that's pretty taxing. I know it doesn't sound like much, but the emotional roller coaster as a coach, it's incredible. I'll never forget the first game I ever coached. The game ended. I was shocked how tired I was, because as a player, you play your shifts, you rest, you go back out. Not that you don't pay attention, but as a coach, mentally, you're playing every play. You're trying to analyze it. You're trying to come up with solutions for your players. I was stunned how tired I was, and I have been on the bench for a 2 overtime game, never a 5, that's for sure. And I can't imagine what goes on from a coaching perspective when you're that deep into a game. Really, 2.5 games when you think about it. And it just an incredible game, and great for hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you build your endurance up? And with a player, if you're tired, you get on the bike, or the coach bag skates you. Like, how do you build up that endurance as a coach?
Well, we have to be mentally tough and resilient too, but that's going to push your limits for sure. But you just get so enthralled in what you're doing. I really believe that, you take your little break in between periods, and you got to recharge the battery and get back after it once you get on the bench.
Yeah, really quickly, interestingly about that is, Coach, we've talked about this before, knowing when to talk to your team and when to let them just do their thing in the intermissions. When you have so many, how do you find that balance?
Yeah, again, it's having the pulse of your team and really paying attention to what their demeanor is on the bench, what their interactions are. Are they getting emotionally tired? You need to get in there and bring them back together and lift their spirits and get them back to the level they're going to need to be successful. So I think that's just constantly being aware of your team's mentality and their personalities and their mental mindset. So you do have a pretty good idea what you're going to want to accomplish in between those periods, because it goes fast. It goes fast. Those in between periods, you'll be sitting there talking as a staff, and I like to go in about the 12-minute mark. But boy, it goes fast. All of a sudden, you're getting in there, and again, you got to be constantly aware of your bench's demeanor during the course of the game in order to plan what you're going to do in between periods.
Coach, we really appreciate you stopping by. We can tell you're already in an office, so it looks like it'll be a busy off season for you, but a lot of exciting things to look forward to.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and again, we're ready to get, first day of next season started the day we get on that plane leaving Toronto, so we're already back at work.
Is there ever an off season for a coach?
No. Even when I get on the golf course every now and then, the mind will wander a little bit, and I jokingly tell our players, my life's pathetic because I'll be standing over a putt and I'll start thinking about Heedle or Howden and some of the things we need to be doing. So hopefully I can block that out this fall.
Disconnect a little bit. You deserve it.